are stronger, stronger than you thought.
Here we go. I'm so excited to be here, and I am seeing everything. Welcome to our first ever Simply Woman.tv show. My name is Crystal Andrus Morissette, and I'm going to be your host, and we're going to be here live every week for the next 12 weeks, bringing you some brilliant ideas to help you create a life you love. We are women, by women, for women. That's what this TV show is all about. And today we're talking, it's our very first episode. Today we're talking about why so many women are afraid to really show up, put themselves out there, start that dream job, or fulfill that career goal. Why? And we did a survey through our school, the S.W.A.T Institute, which I'm also founder of, and we discovered that the number one thing women are afraid of is being rejected. They are so afraid to fail, and so often we hold ourselves back. So today I've invited for our very first show my dear friend and colleague Britta Aragon to help us unpack this phenomenon of why there are so many incredible women that are still so afraid to be rejected, and who are we afraid of being rejected from. So we're gonna, Britta's gonna offer us some great ideas and ways so that we can remove those blocks and obstacles that might be preventing you from creating your best life. We're gonna be here for 30 minutes once a week. But let me introduce Britta. She is a master purpose and vision coach. She's also the admissions advisor at the S.W.A.T Institute. She does a deep dive helping women dismantle their fears and self-limiting beliefs so they can create a life beyond their wildest dreams. And she's done it. That's why she's my guest. She's a Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer survivor. She wrote her first book, When Cancer Hits, in 2012. At the age of 40, which I always say this every time I talk to you, Bria, I always say, but you only look 30. So at the age of 40, which is a while ago, she took a huge leap of faith. This is what we're talking about today. She left her marriage. We're not telling you have to do that, but she left her marriage. She sold her $1 million skincare line, her business. She put all of her belongings from her gorgeous New York City apartment into storage. She kept 2 suitcases. And for the next 18 months, she solo traveled around the world. She reclaimed the life her soul was searching for. She is now this vibrant single woman living in Miami, Florida. She spends her days walking the beach, although I look like I'm a lot more tan than she is, and I'm up in Canada. She plans world destination retreats, and she guides women, including myself, to living their most authentic truth. So, Bria, I'm so glad you're here. We've had the opportunity to do a few webinars already in the past, and every time I've done a webinar with you, women are blown away by our energy and our connection and our love for each other and your wisdom. So I invited you today to be my very first guest because you are a woman who is so ready to go for gold, to go for gusto, to really put yourself out there. And honestly, you blow me away a lot. Like, you really breathe life into my dreams sometimes when I'm starting to feel afraid, because I feel those same feelings. And we're going to talk about that today. But this was not always the case with you. You were not always just so willing and wanting and ready to go for gold. Tell us a little bit about that, and thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor and a pleasure to be on this first episode. What a gift. And I know that this show is going to bless so many women in so many levels. So thank you for putting this together. And, it's thinking about this topic today and where I am. I'm 47 today. And sometimes, we do this deep reflection about our lives and where we've been. And so as I was sort of preparing for today's episode, it was looking back at some of the times in my life where I was so afraid to put something out there, that it would keep me up at night, that I would sort of sabotage whatever I was doing, because the pain or the capacity, I would say the capacity, I don't think I had the capacity to withhold criticism or rejection. And I'm going to sort of take that further by saying that I also don't believe I had enough practice receiving it to really understand that it wasn't about me. And so it was very interesting. I think as the more you do this, the more you put yourself out there, the more you are really connected to a dream, a business, and you are afraid of, oftentimes when people say, oh my gosh, I feel like an imposter, I have imposter syndrome. And I said, people that are not meant to launch what you're launching don't have imposter syndrome. So if you have imposter syndrome, that's because this is what you're meant to be doing. So it's a reframe where a lot of people say, oh, I'm just not confident. I don't really have what it takes. Like, who's going to read my book? That's exactly what you're meant to be doing. That's a reframe. My dad used to say, when fear appears, it's a green light, Brie. It's green light, unless, of course, we've got someone chasing us. So for me, Crystal, the way I've launched a skincare brand, waking up in the middle of the night going, I'm not a doctor. Who's going to buy this? I'm a makeup artist. Like, I don't know this. What if they hate it? What if it sucks? Because it was probably the first most authentic thing that really represented my truth. It was a brand dedicated to my father. I spent 3 years in research and development with doctors to perfect it. It was time for it to come out. I wasn't sleeping. Why? I was afraid of what people were going to say about it, which then at that time, I was making it mean something about me.
Yeah. And
that's where we could get lost. Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of women do. I think I see it every day. You see it. I just think we have to show up. And today I said, let's really show up and be authentic, because I feel it too. Just this morning, I was laying in bed before I fully woke up and was fully conscious, and I could feel anxiety inside thinking about the show, I have been talking about launching this show for women, about women, by women for like 20 years, 25 years. It's been somewhere percolating, and I've had so many conversations, and I get right up to the point that I'm about to launch and something in me kicks in too. And it really has been your influence. And that's why I wanted you to be here today, because I've done a lot of things in my life, but I could have done a lot more. And I'm now in my 50s saying, I can't let that fear of rejection and let's think about, who are we afraid of being rejected by?
Yes.
I think that is important too. Maybe you can talk about that.
Well, and I think first and foremost, I had to do some work around not caring what the immediate family thought, because like you, I'm not very close to my whole family system. Once my dad passed away, he was everything. I mean, I'm close with my mom and my brother, but I have an extended family, and they're very opinionated and they're very critical. And there's a superiority complex that we know comes from an inferiority complex, and they always have an opinion. And that's okay. But I had to do my work, around the judgment, the shame, the fear that came up. What would it mean if I put something out there? So never mind the people when I'm putting out my skincare line, right? But I think this is a great point, we always have to think about, oh, what will people think? But what we really want to ask ourselves is, who are those 2 or 3 individuals that we're really scared of what they'll think?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think if we told ourselves the truth, it's that we're not afraid of just a blanket rejection, although some of us are afraid of the keyboard haters. And I want to talk a little bit about that today, because in the last, I'm going to say 6 years or so, there has been a backlash. I actually have the book right here, but anyways, Backlash. And this was a book that came out by Susan Faludi in the late 90s, I think. And she has a new preface that she just launched in 2020, because we thought there was a backlash when we were all coming out and stepping into these roles as women and Fortune 500, running companies. But there's been another layer of backlash against female journalists, against women who are, there's been a new level of it again, and so I think some of us are really afraid of, like you said, the 2 or 3 people. And then we have this story somewhere that there's somebody out there, the haters, that we don't think we can deal with. I'd love for you to talk about that.
Well, I also want to talk about the backlash, like what you're saying. It's like, that's literally what we are scared of, in that we're going to get this backlash. I'm not going to know what to do with it. And then I'm going to internalize it. And most of the time, the backlash that we're hearing, it's the reason it hurts so much, or we're afraid of it, because there's a part of us that actually believes that. And so hearing it hurts. So the work becomes, wow, my wound, my trauma is believing. And to hear somebody say something you truly believe, that it's a mistake, we got to correct that, right? It's not the truth. It's a lie that we believe.
And it's not, and I love that you just said that, because it's, when we say it's something we truly believe, it's a lie we've bought into.
That's right.
And it's part of our shadow. That's why I always say to you, we got to do shadow work, because
yes,
locked away somewhere down there in the basement, so to speak. So when someone says that thing that we've spent our whole life trying to prove we're not, that we never be, that we couldn't be, that we don't want to be, and when they say that, it really brings up, I think, old stories and old wounds.
And that's why we hide. Because we've already subconsciously gone through, oh, this is what will happen. No, thank you. I'm not ready to look under the basement yet, or under the hood, and deal with that. So I'm just not going to write my book. And then we realize we're not doing it. So that's why I love S.W.A.T and what we offer, because we have interventions that get under the hood, so that we could work these things out, so that they don't become the reasons we don't write the message. And, I think part of the first thing I want to say, to me, what surpassed, because as long as I was in 51% trust and 49% fear, I could keep moving. So I had to be very conscious and mindful of keeping that ratio. 51% trust, 49 fear. Fear can be there. It's not about getting it out of the way. It's like, I see you, I hear you, but today I have 1% more trust in my mission, in my divine assignment. So I'm stepping in. And it's a one day at a time thing, each day you do that. And so I'll say one more thing. It's, for me, when I was launching the skincare brand, I'll go back to this, and I'm a big believer of this, and I know you are too. It came back to my why. Because a lot of the time when I am very concerned, what will they think? What if they hate it? I'm not really performing for an audience of one. And when I mean an audience of one, it's the universe. It's what my calling. It's not that. I'm performing for an audience of whatever, 1,000, 1,000,000, whoever, where the brand goes. When I start performing, and what I mean performing is doing what I do so that I can get praise, I'm in trouble. When I'm performing for the divine assignment, when I'm performing for the calling, when I'm performing for the mission, I then know, and I'm getting goosebumps right now, I know that if I'm getting backlash, that it means two other things that I'll talk about. Because as long as I am aligned with what I have been called to do, and backlash, criticism, rejection, judgment comes with it, I am okay, because I'm in my mission. However, if I was performing for the praise and then I get the rejection and all that, it will affect me in a very different way.
So I love what I'm hearing you say. So if I'm doing what I believe is my soul's calling, if I'm doing what I really believe I'm called to do, the fear. But what about the woman that says, I'm not 100% sure what my calling is. I just know I want to go in that direction. I want to move in that direction. I think this is my calling. How do I separate that from knowing, is this my ego that just wants likes? Do I just want to be an Instagram influencer for the sake of being popular? Or how do I know for sure this is my calling? And I'm hearing you say, if it's your calling.
It usually involves other people. If it's ego, it's about yourself. So
say that again to me. Help me understand that again.
Yeah. So if it's
about your, say it again.
Yeah, if it's your calling, it usually involves helping other people. If it's about ego, it just involves yourself and getting that boost or whatever it is that you're looking for.
Very true. Very true. When you get out, it's almost like that when we hear people say, when you get out of the way of yourself, it's like, it's not about me anymore. I have to say that a lot, like even doing this show or launching our school.
So do I.
I have to say that to myself a lot. Wait, this isn't really about, I mean, it's about me, that it's what I'm doing and it's what I love and it's what I want to do, but it's not so much about me. It's that I'm doing something bigger than me and I'm helping more than me. And this is a bigger mission than just myself. And that helps me to get out of the way of the stories I'm telling myself in my head.
But there's something also that happens energetically, Crystal, when we are so focused on advancing the earth, leaving a legacy, you know, like you taking a stand for women, really creating a movement. The energy that comes with that, it's almost like we're hooked into a different realm, that the fear starts to dissolve because we are so connected to the legacy, the movement, and that can be legacy within your family system. It doesn't mean that you have to be legacy in front of millions. And also to answer the question of the woman that doesn't know, is this ego, is this not? That's where I suggest go through a discovery process, invest the time and, you know, and some money to get into a program or a mentorship or some sort of, find something that allows you to understand, am I creating this vision out of my unmet emotional needs? Or am I creating it from the most authentic place of why I'm here? I always say, everybody has a purpose. Everybody. There is a purpose that every one of you listening has. Purpose is like an umbrella. It has a purpose. It covers you from getting wet. Not always, but most of the time. And there is a very unique signature that you have with a purpose, the way you're going to say it, the way you're going to deliver it, the way you're going to package it, the way you're going to show up with it, your energy style, that is waiting to be revealed. But some of us, again, we don't believe that because we've been lied to that we just go to school, we become a doctor, or we do this, or some of us don't have enough money to pay the bills. So we've bought into the narrative of struggle, or we've bought into the narrative of this or the other. So it's a discovery journey. And taking the time to really be aligned and discovering what that is. And wow, I'll, you know, talk about it being authentic and honest. I figured out through my process with CV Skin Labs, the reason I wouldn't stop at anything. Nothing was stopping me because my why was my dad. But my why, really, Crystal, if I'm really honest, is or was that I still wanted to prove to my father that I was smart enough. And he wasn't even here anymore. I'm not just a pretty face. I'm doing, like, I can do this. I can. So that was driving a lot of my why. So
do you think in that I need to prove this to my dad, because I think a lot of us have that, or the opposite, I'm so afraid of my parents seeing what I truly believe. I'm so afraid of my parents realizing that I have thoughts that are different than them. I'm so one way or the other. I've had that same thing too, Brie, where I've thought, oh geez, decided not to, yeah, there's my phone. I've had that same thing too, Brie, where I feel like I'll show you. Yeah. Like there's been sometimes in me where it's like the fear of failing is like, the fear of not succeeding is too big for me, that I have to do it because but I wonder if that's enough to take us and sustain us, is I need to prove to my dad I'm smart, or I need to prove to the bullies. Yeah, it's not.
You're right. That has an expiry date. That's a driver for sure. Yep. And people say, turn your hate into fuel, or, you know, use that as a
anger as jet fuel. Yeah, I say it. Use your anger as jet fuel for your greatness, but it will only take you so far.
Yes, there's an expiry date for that because it's not grounded and rooted in that authentic calling. And so it will end at some point. You will get it off the ground. You'll get the plane off the ground, but the fuel, right, will be finite.
Yes.
Where on your purpose, the fuel is infinite. So because there's the energy of the universe aligns with you.
It's like when we hear people say source energy. Now you're using source energy. You're not using only your anger. You're not using you'll see, you're not using, and that can be a great thing to get someone started. For example, you have kids and you want to do it better for them, or you want to, all of that stuff is like, it's a great thing to get you started, but it's not going to keep the dream going.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that we're hearing women say, and at that point, I'm so afraid that if I fail, I'll be so embarrassed that I can't put myself out there because I'm just too afraid of what. And let's go back to the 2 to 3 people, because it's interesting you said your dad, because it's also those 2 or 3 people that sometimes we're doing it for. And it's also sometimes those 2 or 3 people that are really the fear of rejection that stops us.
Yeah.
So I would love for you, I know we talked about we dabbled into that a little bit, but let's really understand and let's talk a little bit about, from your opinion, that mechanics of rejection so that we can reframe it.
Oh my God.
You're brilliant at being able to reframe a story and to use it as a springboard almost to put yourself out there with confidence.
Yeah, well, I think because we don't understand rejection, we take it as it's a black or white. It's like, oh, I'm rejected, I'm not going to do that. Or if I get rejected, I won't do that. We're cheating ourselves. Let's get under the hood. Like rejection sometimes is protection, right? Like rejection, no, you're not getting that role. It's because we don't know what's going to happen down the road. Like I really believe that perception, like it's all about perception. And when you have a mindset that everything is always working out for you, that if that wasn't meant to be, then it's not going to be, and I'm going to try this corner, or I'm going to try that door now, and you keep going, right? But I think we get in trouble and we suffer when we make the rejection mean something about us.
Yes.
And then that actually paralyzes us. And now the world is missing out on what I'm supposed to be putting out there one day at a time. And so if we get underneath the mechanics of rejection, it can be redirection. So always reminding that, okay, if I get rejected, that just means it's information for me. These are not my people. That's not my ideal client. That's not where I'm meant to be. That's not the shop where my book's meant to be sold. That's not the retailer where my product's supposed to be. It's like, okay, that's not supposed to be where I am. But I'm getting closer to exactly where I need to be. Now, I have a quote that I wanted to read. It says, anytime someone tells you that you are to something, that's probably your biggest gift and their biggest shadow.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to get underneath rejection and projection, because rejection and projection come with, oh, people are saying this about me, the haters. We talked about this a minute ago, the haters, the comments. Most of those comments are projections. And those, if you understand that people that still haven't learned how to own their power, and they see you owning your power, they will backlash. They will be like, how dare you? Who do you think you are? But that's because they haven't done their shadow work. So
Barb here on Facebook says, having self-esteem is what keeps one going. And I agree. What you're saying underneath all that is and how do we, for those women that are like, I think I have good self-esteem, but then you would have to ask yourself and say, but so maybe the work also includes some work in there to help you realize, like you just said it, like the way somebody treats me really has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them. And the way that I treat people really doesn't have to do with them. It has to do with who I am and how I show up in my life. So what you're suggesting is when someone does that to you, and it takes practice. Here's the truth.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I'll tell you, back probably, I'm going to say 6 years ago. 6 years ago was when those keyboard haters really, in my world, seemed to come on strong. And it was scary. It was scary for me because I was used to being like loved and I had really nice comments. And like right now we have all these lovely comments that are coming up. And all of a sudden, I don't know if it was the algorithms. I don't know if it was and I don't know enough about this, the bots. I don't know if they were real, but I would do a Facebook Live like this. And the comments, the mean, like stuff that had nothing to do with content. It had to do with me physically. It had to do with, and just mean things that they would say. I don't know why I let that affect me. It really, hurt my feelings. And I felt like, wow, people are being mean, and I don't want people to be mean to me. So I'm just going to stop. I'll just posts every day. I'll just put memes up.
Right.
I'm going to stop showing up fully. And that's a travesty. That's what I'm hearing you say. What a travesty if we let those people, even if it's the 2-3 in your personal life, that the truth is you don't really like them.
That's right.
They don't really like you.
Yeah.
They're going to say mean things about you. And for you to not do your thing and work your magic and let source energy flow through you so that you can do your creative genius, what a massive travesty for the world that we'd be missing out on you.
And I would say, so if that's you, and we get into this space where, okay, you're getting hate mail or hate comments, first of all.
And I don't want everyone to think you're going to get that, by the way. Like, we're talking.
But there was someone once said, I don't remember who it is, but it's like, if you're finally getting hate mail or hate comments, you're actually finally in your purpose.
Yeah.
And so that's another reframe, right? Like, you want to load up yourself with, like, again, the spiritual axiom, whenever I am disturbed, it's got absolutely nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. So if I know that, like, the minute I get something like that, I'm hurt too, and I feel my stuff. And then it's about doing my work around it, processing, okay, what of that could be true that I haven't healed yet? Okay, what of that is she projecting? Because about projection, it's when someone has an own parts of themselves, both shadow and gifts, that they will project, that there's grievances and resentments, and projection starts when I'm still don't accept that I can be loud. So now I'm going to be like, oh, she's so loud. But that's right. Because I have that, yet I haven't owned it. Or someone that can be negative, that I'm still rejecting the part of me that can also be negative. So when you get that, it's information, it's their gifts wrapped up that require you to have some capacity to be like, okay, I'm going to go this. I'm going to look at this. But I'll read one more quote about projection. It says, when we fully embody who we are, we don't feel the need to project lost part of ourselves onto other people. Hurt people. Sometimes I read some comments online and I'm like, who has time for that? Or why? Like, it's astonishing to me. And then I remember, wow, that person they feel that they've been totally shortchanged by life. I could see it. So they're projecting all their hurt, all their fear, and it has nothing to do with us. So this building spiritual immunity is being so connected to a purpose, one day at a time, coming to believe in that purpose. Like, it's a practice, you're building a muscle, and then building this immunity that eventually you'll put things in place. Maybe you don't read the comments, so you could stay connected to what you're meant to do.
I was going to say that you do have to put things in place, just like you just said. So it might be like you hear some celebrity say, never read the comments. Never read them. Like, you're human, especially when you first start out. Now, for me, I'll be honest with you, I have learned to delete and block. I have that right. I don't want that. I don't want that energy coming at me while I'm doing a Facebook Live. And afterwards, I think, no, I'm okay to go through those and just be like, you're mean, delete and block. I don't engage with that person. I don't try to explain to them why I'm lovely. I just delete and block. We're not meant for each other, and that's perfectly okay. Mary Elizabeth says, as she is Anto says she's loving this conversation. Mary Elizabeth has just graduated. Mary Elizabeth as an coach. Mary Elizabeth, I have to tell you this, and we're getting ready to go off here. Mary Elizabeth is in her 70s, and she was one that when she signed up, I think she had fear of whatever the too muchness. She said, I love that too much quote. I have had a lot of you are too much, or whatever it is, great perspective. Mary Elizabeth, we will tell you this. I don't think we've ever had anyone do the quality level of coaching that you have done. We have listened to Mary Elizabeth's calls, and Sandika and I, our assistant professor, were like, this is the most incredible coaching. This woman has such wisdom. And what a travesty if she decided in her 70s, well, I'm just going to pack it in now, pass the torch. It's like, no, she's got so much to give to the world. So thank you, Mary Elizabeth, for staying the course and doing it. Charlene, speaking of Charlene, we are already out of time, and I want to let you know that next week, we are going to be talking about heterosexual love relationships, and we're going to have our certified empowerment coach and relationship expert right there, Charlene Byers. If you keep choosing the wrong kind of guy, or you just can't seem to get your inner radar machine working effectively, you're not going to want to miss our show next week. We're going to be back here. Plus, we'd love for your help to help us choose great topics. Maybe you'll even be a guest on the show, one of our guest experts. You're going to want to head to simplywoman.tv to be here live, to join the conversation, and for next steps to be in the vault. So Charlene's next week. And Bri, I want to thank you. It went so fast, 30 minutes. Like, just went like that, but I want to thank you so much. Bri, again, is she's a master purpose and vision coach. She's also the admission advisor at the S.W.A.T Institute, Simply Woman accredited trainer. It's been my pleasure to connect with you today. Again, my name is Crystal Andrus Morissette, and I'll be back next week on simplywoman.tv. That's it for now. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
You are stronger, stronger than